praying that one day we would have a future. And my mother literally put her life on the line to give us that future. By becoming a New York City police officer way back in 1973 and becoming one of the first women to go on patrol in the history of this city. I remember as a little boy seeing my mother put on her uniform, her police uniform at the house, and going out to patrol the streets of New York. And she did so when crime was rampant in the city. And when there was a chance that she would not make it back home to her 3 children. But she did so day after day without ever complaining. I stand before you today about to become the next district attorney of Brooklyn because Clara Thompson first stood on the streets of New York as a police officer. Stood on the streets of New York during the blackout in the 70s, during the crime and the violence of the 80s, and during the crack epidemic of the 90s. And she did so and never wavered in her duty to serve, in her duty to protect, in her duty to uphold the law. Because of my mother, I will always be grateful to God that He gave me such an extraordinary mother. Who didn't give up on me, and who gave me the principles of fairness, justice, and equality as a little boy. Now I want to thank each and every one of you who voted for me, because over the past couple of months, you've had a very important choice to make, and that is whether the great people of Brooklyn would give in to false accusations, fear-mongering, and race-baiting, or stand up for Brooklyn's bright future. Today, that question has been answered resoundingly. From Coney Island to Crown Heights, from Canarsie to Clinton Hill, from Brownsville to Bedford-Stuyvesant. As part of Brooklyn's great future, we must ensure that no man or woman ever is again convicted wrongfully in Brooklyn of murders that they did not commit because of police misconduct. We must also make sure that we free all the people who are wrongfully convicted. Who are wrongfully convicted in our great borough. Because the ultimate duty of a prosecutor is not to convict people. The ultimate duty of a prosecutor is to do justice. And it is not justice when innocent people go to prison for murders that they did not commit. And in the memory of police officer Peter Vigorski, of Detective James Nimmerin, and Detective Rodney Andrews, who gave their lives so valiantly to protect us and keep us safe, we must do all we can to get these illegal guns off the streets. And in the memory of beautiful 1-year-old Antique Hennis, a beautiful 1-year-old baby who was shot and killed right here in Brooklyn while being pushed in a stroller before he even had a chance to live. We must do all we can to end the senseless gun violence that is literally killing our children right before our very eyes. But in doing so, every young man of color walking down the street cannot be viewed as a suspect worthy of a stop and frisk. We must make sure that the stop and frisk in Brooklyn going forward must be based on reasonable suspicion. And reasonable suspicion can't mean a black man or Latino man or because you live in a high crime neighborhood. But at the same time, we must all do what we can to keep our neighborhood safe. And that means we must end this belief in no snitching, which allows criminals to continue to prey upon us. Now, I want to say something. People have asked me, why did I run for Brooklyn DA? I ran for Brooklyn DA because I love Brooklyn, and I care about Brooklyn. I ran for Brooklyn DA because I heard about a woman named Shirley Chisholm, who ran for president as a black woman and who paved the way for future generations of elected officials of color here in Brooklyn. I ran for Brooklyn District Attorney because I met a beautiful woman in college named LaShawn, who became my wife and my partner for life, who gives me strength day after day. I ran for Brooklyn DA because I met a man and a great pastor named A.R. Bernard, who taught me that I must be true to the calling that God has placed on my life. And I ran for Brooklyn DA because God gave me a friend who's more like a brother named Hakeem Jeffries, who stood with me first when very few people thought I had a chance. And I ran because of every innocent man and woman who's been convicted in our borough, wrongfully for murders that they didn't commit. I ran for every young man who's been stopped and frisked unjustly on the streets of Brooklyn. And I ran because we deserve a Brooklyn DA's office that will keep us safe, and also one that will be based on fundamental